Hey everybody, welcome back to Shoe and Show. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode. Matt, I don't know if you know this or not. I think you do. This year is 250 years of America's birth, I guess, or history, or anniversary, or whatever it is. Now, that would be based on 1776, right? So just clarify that. It's different dates, different constitutions, etc. But this year in particular is going to be a great year. We've got a great event in Washington, D.C. coming up in April. If you're interested in learning more about getting in the room with 130 CEOs and executives at the American History Museum to celebrate footwear's the American story and footwear and shoes contribution to that kind of story and narrative, please let us know. But I want to tee up that too, because there is a new shoe company focused on American men in particular that is now coming to the market. And it behooves us to have on the shoe veteran, Matt, to kind of share what this new shoe line is, who they're focused on in particular, and around that. So I just want to tee up, happy birthday, America. Maybe there's a new shoe for America's men.
Yeah, I think there is. I'm actually pretty excited about it. This conversation, I've been really enthused to get to it. And some might say I'm stoked, but we'll unpack it. Rick Blackshaw, our dear friend, who is an industry veteran, he's been all over the place. Rick, you can talk about kind of your prior operations within the footwear space if you want, but you have a new brand out, STOKE Shoes. We've been to the showroom in New York late last year. We saw the product. It's looking great. Rick, welcome to Shoe and Show. Talk to us about what was the solve? What was the problem you were trying to solve as you launched this new brand?
Awesome. Great. It's great to be here, Andy. I thought you were actually going for, with that intro, he looks like a Civil War recreationist. And so I'm glad we didn't veer in that direction. But no, it's great. It's great to be here. I really appreciate the airtime and the conversation. I think there was a lot of things that led us to start up STOKE. I think that if I can be a little bit hyperbolic, Big Sneaker, as we like to think of it as a scrappy startup, it's a little bit of a fraud. And by that, I mean, Big Sneaker is all about elite performance, right? That 1%, wear these shoes and you're going to run 4% faster. And if they're not in that vein, they're about, Harry the hipster in Brooklyn and the trickle down theory, or they're after, 13 to 24-year-old kids that are, saying 6'7" because they think that they drive, footwear culture, right? And at the end of the day, we think that leads to overbuilt, overhyped, overmarketed, and expensive sneakers. And the afterthought, or perhaps better, the never thought, is our guy, that 25 to 54-year-old All-American who we think of as the engine room of America, right? And what that guy needs is really nothing that they're shilling. And, our guy is basically, he lives in the middle of the country, probably has a job that sees him on his feet. He's, I've done so many focus groups over my years talking to this guy. He's proudly American. He's a family guy. He wants to, work hard. He wants to have fun. And at the end of the day, like everybody else, 80% of the time that he buys a pair of sneakers, he never uses it for their intended purpose, right? He just simply wants comfort. And then the other thing that we know is the average guy in America is 5'9" and he weighs 200 pounds, and 75% of them actually have wide feet, but only 25% of them are wearing wide sneakers. And we think some of that comes back to, like everything else in athletic footwear, Chuck Taylor in 1917 being built with a very narrow last. And so for the last century, athletic footwear and Big Sneaker has been on this bender about containment, right? And we know, like, if you're 14 or 15, that's great. You're playing basketball, you're playing a field sport, you size down your cleats, we know that for anybody over the age of 25, it's an absolute train wreck for your feet, right? It causes instability, foot pain, bunions, neuroma, like anything that you can think of that is really bad for your feet. That's what Big Sneaker has been purveying for 100 years. And so we thought about this a little bit differently and said, let's come at this from an angle of, this afterthought slash never thought. Let's actually build shoes for him and then market directly to him. And that's kind of where we got to Stoke. And I'd say just sort of anecdotally, I've been thinking about this for almost a decade now, right? And some of this has been anywhere that I've been where we've introduced a wide version of an icon. It's always had the greatest, velocity, right? And so I kind of combined all those things together and said, let's actually get after it. Let's build shoes for this guy and speak to him in a super male-centric voice. And so I'd sort of stop there. I can certainly get into the details.
When you talk to them, do you lower your voice? Is that how you speak to the? I'm just kidding. So the armchair athlete, that's what we're going after, right? Like, let's focus it on that, right? Armchair athlete who loves sports, watches sports, may not be an athlete themselves, but like love it, etc. So you've got your target market down, and you've talked about that. Talk to me about the product. Like, why is this going to connect with them? What is the product?
Yeah. So Andy, we start out with two silhouettes: the FOMO, which is a runner that nobody's ever going to run a marathon in, and then the Versa, which is about, kind of court inspired looks. And those are the number 1 and 2 silhouettes that this guy wants, right? And what he really needs, again, is this idea of not containment. He needs splay because he's got wide feet. And so he's also, because he, weighs on average 200 pounds, he needs a thick stack, right? And not a thick stack like $250 carbon plated, supercritical foam thick stack, but something that is, simply super comfortable. And so these shoes have a power stack platform, right? Which is, on the FOMO, 44 mils at the heel, 34 at the forefoot. It is low durometer, high energy return. This guy's been on his feet all day long. He wants to put on these shoes and relax. He might be out at date night. He might be on the sideline of his kid's field. He might be going to get coffee or beer with the guys. He might be grilling in these things. And most interestingly, the most common reaction we've had when people put these shoes on is, holy shit, these are the most comfortable shoes I've ever worn, right? And that's because of this power stack that we've got, the most underfoot cushioning in this kind of casual athletic footwear business. And so that's sort of the foundation of our innovation for our guy. Obviously nobody these days wants to tie his shoes, and especially if you're not going out and playing a sport in them like 80% of the folks out there. So we have this slip-on, stoke-out technology. These are all ease of entry. We've got what we call the mansplay midsole, and the idea behind that is, men are known for mansplaining. Women aren't necessarily a fan of that, but they will be a fan of mansplay midsole because it's going to make their guy happy. And the basic thought behind this is, for just about every shoe out there, and in particular running shoes, they're cupped at the forefoot, right? Which means that a guy cannot expand beyond the parameters of that cup. And so in the forefoot of these shoes, there is absolutely no cup. And with this wide platform, it means that because the average guy, his foot from morning to evening expands half a size in width and half a size in length and half a width, right? And so this allows this mansplay midsole without the cup, allows him to kind of spread out into his full power, right? So that's one of the things. The other thing to note is we've got this big ball girth fit system, right? And not only is it fun to say big ball girth, but it's actually a really awesome technical benefit. There's obviously wide shoes out there, but they're wide at the net. They don't necessarily have the ball girth and the volume in the forefoot. So we've been super mindful of developing this big ball girth technology. And again, it allows this guy just to kind of get in his shoe and spread out. And so that's some of the foundational elements. The other thing would be our Elastec, which is a dynamic four-way stretch upper. And all these things combined means literally this guy puts on these shoes. He says, holy shit, these are the most comfortable shoes. And he goes about his life, right? And his life is not about running a 10K. It's like running after his kids, right? And so you put all this together, there's absolute massive utility for these shoes. And, it makes people smile when they put them on. And that's absolutely what we're after.
Hey, Rick, let me ask you this, Rick. It's kind of two questions, and they might be interrelated, but I want you to kind of break them down for me. One, you have a tremendous history in our industry. You've worked for a lot of great companies. You're well respected. So my question for you is kind of what's the reception been and kind of what's the rollout? Because we're a relational industry. It takes relationships to get into doors and get product on shelves. And then secondly, as a part of that, we've had these kind of cultural moments over the last few years where in 2024, I think about the Barbie movie, this whole kind of conversation about femininity, right? And what that means and empowerment there. And then we have like this kind of masculinity moment happening now with the kind of the blogosphere focused on men's issues, energy drinks, keto, this, that, and the other. And so there are these moments where these cultural things are happening where we're having these conversations about what it means to be masculine, what it means to be feminine. And it sounds like you're really kind of tapping into the masculinity aspect of that. But at some point, will that broaden out to the femininity? Kind of walk us through that reception and then this cultural moment that we find.
Awesome questions, Matt. So reception so far has been great. At the consumer level, to begin with, we did a tremendous amount of research. We did, really long-standing footwear test. Basically, half the guys were like, I love these shoes. We then did a brand concept test, which was, sizzle reel, some social media assets, pictures of the shoes. And we found out 90% of the guys were like, this brand resonates with me. And a third of the guys, after like 3 minutes, were like, I love this brand. This is my brand, right? So we knew from our research that we were in good stead and that this was something that the guy wanted. As we got out there with our web launch, which is about 3 weeks old, we had a tremendous reaction. At our media agency says absolutely one of the best starts they've seen from a startup from any metric that you can think of. And if you go on our website right now, I think we've got about 40 reviews and our average review is 4.9 out of 5 stars, right? And so we knew from our research that there is absolute A, white space, B, that the guy was going to be really positively predisposed. And now that's kind of bearing out in the early days of our launch. And then as we get to the start of March, we'll be in 450 doors, kind of the best of where this guy wants to shop. He's going to be at Sporting Goods. We'll be in Academy. We'll be in Shields. He's in Family Footwear. We'll be in Rack Room. We'll be in Shoe Show. We'll be in Shoe Sensation. And then a good amount of these guys also are, the farm and fleet. Right? These guys are in the middle of America and, we're at Murdoch's, we're at Runnings, we're at North 40. And then on top of that, a bunch of other really great independents. And so we're at the places that this guy wants to shop and we're really excited about as we get out to retail and in a broader community, how this performs. And then your point about this men's movement, I think, when we started rallying the troops on this, it was definitely a little counterculture to be about like, we're men's only, right? And some of that is, I think it's really important, the sharpness of the proposition, and the sharpness of the voice, right? And we know the way that we're going to go about this with, we're going to have a lot of fun with the way that we communicate, the benefits, the way we go after big sneaker. We're going to call out this wide disconnect where 75% of guys have wide feet, only 25% are buying wide shoes in an outrageous manner, and generally like be super scrappy, right? And so we think now that this men's movement, before it was about like you had dad bod and dad jokes, and it was all about kind of derision, and now it's definitely there's a tailwind, right? And I wouldn't go so far as to call it the manosphere, which is something, if you read the New York Times, they love to throw out there, but this is just kind of supporting and celebrating that average all-American guy and just making stuff for him and talking to him in a cool way. And so, like I said, I think this is it is a moment. I think it's going to be long-lived because these guys have been kind of out in their man caves in the shadows for a while. And now, the light's been shining on them a little bit. And I think we're going to mesh very well with that tailwind.
So you've got the rollout coming March, you said, in stores nationwide. What is the messaging like? Because I know you guys, you in particular, you use some humor to try to break through some of the noise out there. So what's the conversation like, and what is the plan to engage these guys to let them know this is a new shoe that they should be wearing?
Yeah, so we'll be broadly focused on digital marketing and influencers, particularly podcasts. Like this guy's about, football, barbecue, beer, NASCAR. Those are the areas in which are his highest interest points. So we'll see us with influencers in those realms, podcasts in those realms, and then a real heavy dose of humor, bringing about the benefits, right? This idea around holy shit comfort. That's actually one of the assets that has driven the best ROAS from our marketing efforts so far for our website, right? We don't actually say we take out the I and we put in the bolt that is our logo. So, calling that out, talking about, I hate running unless it's running to get beer. And that's something that's literally a quote from our guy as we did the brand concept testing, right? Another guy was talking about like, I'm built like a brick shit house and these shoes are made for me. That testimonial is going to be part of it. We're going to be talking about, the line of demarcation for wide feet, if you're a size 9, is 4 inches, right? And so naturally, we're going to be talking about, if you have 4 inches or more, you are our guy. And then we're going to be talking about this is below the ankle. It's not anything else. Get your mind out of the gutter. And so we're going to be having a lot of fun. And if you go to our Insta feed, you'll see all this stuff played out real well. And because we also think like, the world needs a little bit of humor right now, right? As we think about geopolitics and just the divisiveness of America, we're right in the middle of this. We're going to have fun. We're going to do this with a little wink and a little bit of mirth. And so, we think that is absolutely going to stand out when we think about, big sneaker and the seriousness of it and the, elite performance and the sweat and all that is absolutely not true, right? Or when they veer off into, kind of the cultural cruisers and Harry the hipster and about fashion and all that. This guy doesn't want any of either of those things. And so we're going to play right down the middle with him.
Well, Rick, I remember you talked about derision, right? And I remember Saturday Night Live did an ad. It was a fake ad, obviously, for a shoe brand we all know and love, and Northeast based. Zach Galifianakis was the star, and it was like the dad shoe with the dad bod with the dad jokes, and it was making fun of this part of our society. For I assume all three of us are a part of this in some form or fashion as fathers, etc. But there was a derision to it. So it's almost like this is a punchback moment where you're not taking yourself too seriously. you're going to be hyperbolic, but you're going to have fun with it. Hey, and dad jokes are still allowed because we're going to have fun with it. But at the same time, it's going to be great style, great fit. And it's just, I don't know. There's just something, it's almost like, it's almost like a friendly punchback.
Yeah. Now, if I may, I have 2 ideas for you, Rick. Here we go.
I'm going to write these down, Andy.
Yeah. Make sure your pin's ready. So if you're doing a beer run, you should actually do a 5K beer run.
He's literally getting out a pen.
You know,
I got my pen.
You should literally do like a 5K that turns into a beer run, right? The guys just stand there and go off, or it's a whole bunch of guys and they're just going for a beer run. That's it. Like,
but only it ends
really them.
It's halfway through it.
Yeah, the gun goes off and they just start walking. And it's just they veer off the course and you go straight to the bar or something like that, right?
I love it. I love it.
Now there's another one that would time.
Now, before you go on, Andy will be the race marshal, so he will.
Exactly. And funny enough, the race marshal will follow them. He'll look around and they'll just follow them to the bar as well. You know, the other one is having a guy who is at watching their kids soccer, and then it flips later to where he's at the symphony with his wife, and he's still wearing the STOKE shoes, and the tagline is, "No matter where you get dragged to, we'll keep you stoked."
I love it. I love it. And I'll say
like a tux or something for the symphony, but you get the idea. It's
I love it. And that super important point on that, right? Like this guy, he wants the product utility, right? He wants to slip on shoes. He wants them to be comfortable. They've got to fit his wide feet, but he also doesn't want to buy 25 different shoes for different outfits, right? This guy's probably wearing jeans, and if he went to the symphony, he's probably in his Tennessee tuxedo, right?
There you go.
And so he wants to buy in colors and materials that are versatile and fit his life, right? And so we definitely started out in a very core vein because he wants to buy one pair of shoes that'll last him and cover off against the various usage occasions. That's super important. And the beer run, so both my girls were in college, and they had this thing called the beer mile, right? And the idea is like you run a 440, you chug a beer, you run another 440, you chug a beer, and so at the end of the mile, you've chugged 4 beers. And if you don't boot, then you actually, if you're first and you don't throw up, then you win the beer mile, right? And so this idea has definitely been like kicking around in our brain. I'd like your twist on it though, because it's like, yeah, we're going on a 5K beer run, and it just happens to be like a bar crawl. I absolutely love that.
And
you could train for it too. This could lead up. It's a full campaign where you're training for the beer run.
And you end up just buying $5,000 worth of beers for the participants. That's your 5K, right? So you don't even go anywhere.
I like that. That's a lot easier.
That's way
training.
That's hilarious.
Yep.
Well, Rick,
I'm stoked, man. I'm really stoked about this product. I will say, Andy and I both tried these shoes on. Yep. Rick, you were gracious enough to allow us to do that in New York, and they are what you say they are. You were a little hyperbolic, but you're meeting the moment, my friend. So I think you're on to something for sure.
I could have sworn that you guys said, "Holy bleep, these shoes are comfortable," but that might be a little revisionist history in my mind.
Hey man, it was something to that effect.
Yeah, they were super comfortable. Well, we look forward to the launch and getting more feedback and seeing where you go with this, because obviously you've got the core unit, and it'll be interesting, I think, Rick, to see in the future as this is adopted and keeps growing, where you guys go from here. But congratulations on, I mean, it is an accomplishment to go through the industry for 10 years of collecting this and be able to produce something that you are passionate about. So kudos to you for continuing to chase that and actually executing against it. I think there's a lot of people who have these ideas to do something and never do it. And I think we should pay kudos and respects to people who put their money where their mouth is, even if it's a lot of bushy hair around it, put their money where their mouth is, and actually produce something for the market and find the fit. So congratulations.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And, we're starting out in a little bit more on the athletic side of his closet. As we get into fall, it's going to be all about casuals because we want all this guy's closet, right? There's 65 million guys out there that are waiting for this brand. We know based on our research, 33 million of them are absolutely going to love it. That's what we want. We want all their closet. And I tell you also, thanks to you guys, like you guys are serving such an important function for this category. And I'm sure that, these have been the craziest times that we've been experienced. And it's been awesome to have you guys at the helm and kind of leading the way and fighting the good fight. So I really, really appreciate all the good and hard work you do.
Yeah, we appreciate that feedback, Rick. We, like you, love this industry. Once you get in, it's a vortex. You can never leave. It's Hotel California through and through, and can't imagine doing anything else. So thank you for that feedback. And I'm looking forward, just to go on your tagline, real shoes for real men with real lives. And I think that speaks for all of us. So I'm excited about this launch and many congrats.
Keeping it real. Folks, if you want to go and take a look, it's STOKE Shoes. So either you're Googling STOKE Shoes or it's stokeshoes.com. You can go take a look at the catalog on the website and gander at the reviews that are very blunt and real from real Americans. So again, Rick, thanks for coming on today. Folks, Shoe and Show is the Footwear Industries podcast. We're bringing, whether it's new brands, whether it's somebody who's been in the industry for forever, whether it's somebody who's new to the industry, any idea, anything we can do to help strengthen the industry. This is what this whole podcast is about. So we appreciate you joining us every Monday. New episode, shoeandshow.com is the website with our full catalog, but you can find us on Apple Podcasts, you can find us on Spotify, etc. We appreciate you listening. And until next Monday when a new episode drops, Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.